An entire first season of a sitcom was such a mess that the network was ready to cancel it. With too many characters, no clear lead, and ratings nobody wanted to defend in a meeting. One new character walked through the door for season 2, and that same show ran for 8 more years after that. We will get to her, and she is not even the biggest story on this list. Welcome back to the Throwback Network. Every show you have ever loved had an original blueprint, and almost none of these characters were on it. Today, we are counting down 10 characters who were never part of the plan. Added late, added in a hurry, added because something else fell apart, who ended up being the reason the show survived at all. Here is what is coming. A bartender exists because a beloved actor died during production, and the show had to figure out, in real time, what to do about it. A police drama looked finished the moment its lead actor got himself fired, saved by a detective nobody had planned to write. A psychiatrist got contracted for exactly 6 episodes and ended up outliving the show that created him, twice. And yes, before you ask, Steve Urkel almost made this list too. If you have not seen our Family Matters video, that is a whole story on its own, and it deserves its own 10 minutes. Go watch that one after this. These are 10 characters nobody planned for, who ended up saving the shows they joined. Number 10. Kimmy Gibbler. Full House, 1987 to 1995. DJ Tanner's best friend is such a fixture of Full House that it is easy to assume she was there from the very beginning, standing in that kitchen on day 1. She was not. Kimmy Gibbler gets a mention in the pilot, but she does not actually appear on screen until the 2nd episode, and even then, she shows up as a recurring nuisance character rather than a series regular. The Tanner household's most permanent fixture almost was not a character at all. Andrea Barber's chemistry with the rest of the cast is what changed things. Producers kept bringing her back, episode after episode, until it stopped making sense to treat her as a guest, and by season 5, Kimmy Gibbler had become a full-time series regular. She turned into one of the most quoted characters in the show's run, and 3 decades later, she is the one Fuller House builds an entire adult storyline around. The annoying neighbor kid almost was not a character at all. Now she is the one an entire spinoff was built for. Number 9. Chachi. Happy Days, 1974 to 1984. Fonzie was always the biggest star on Happy Days, but by 1977, 4 seasons in, the writers decided he needed family. Scott Baio got introduced as Fonzie's teenage cousin, Chachi Arcola, during a 3-part arc that sent Fonzie chasing a Hollywood screen test. Chachi was not part of the show's original design, and he simply did not exist when Happy Days premiered. Writers brought him in because the story needed somebody, and the somebody they picked stuck around for good. He became a core cast member, a teen idol in his own right, and by 1982, co-lead of his own spinoff, Joni Loves Chachi, meaning a character invented to serve one 3-episode arc, ended up with his name in the title of an entirely separate show. A character invented to keep one storyline moving ended up getting billing of his own. Number 8. Ralph Furley. Three's Company, 1977 to 1984. For 2.5 seasons, the landlords on Three's Company were Stanley and Helen Roper, nosy, judgmental, always hovering in the doorway at exactly the wrong moment. Partway through season 3, Norman Fell and Audra Lindley left to headline their own spin-off, The Ropers. And that left Three's Company with an empty apartment building, an empty role, and no landlord lined up to fill it. Season 4 opened with Don Knotts as Ralph Furley, the new owner's brother, a medallion-wearing, self-declared ladies' man who leaned even harder into physical comedy than the Ropers ever had. It was a full swing in tone for a character who existed purely because the show suddenly needed one, and yet the show did not just survive the transition, it kept its ratings and kept its momentum. The landlord everyone remembers was not the original plan. He was the emergency replacement. Number 7. Guinan. Star Trek. The Next Generation. 1987 to 1994. Season 1 of The Next Generation was shaky enough that even lifelong Star Trek fans were not sure the show would find its footing. Whoopi Goldberg had grown up idolizing Nichelle Nichols' Lieutenant Uhura on the original series, and she wanted in badly enough to reach out through LeVar Burton and then call the production office directly. By one account, producers assumed it was a prank until she called back a second time to prove she meant it. Gene Roddenberry created a role just for her, a mysterious, unflappable bartender named Guinan, running 10 forward and introduced in Season 2. She was not there to fire phasers or fly the ship. Instead, she sat across from Captain Picard and quietly talked him through whatever the week's crisis actually meant, and that dynamic, the one character on the ship who could get under Picard's guard, became one of the show's most trusted relationships. Her arrival also brought mainstream press attention and a level of credibility to a young show that badly needed both. A Hollywood star begged her way onto a struggling sci-fi show, and a character got invented on the spot because of it. Number 6. Simone Nivens, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, 1970 to 1977. The script for an episode called The Lars Affair, airing September 15, 1973, called for a one-episode guest character described only as an icky sweet Betty White type. Betty White played her exactly once, with no plan to bring her back. She was there to be a foil for Phyllis Lindstrom for a single half hour, and that was supposed to be the end of it. Audiences did not let it end there. Simone Nivens, saccharine on camera as the host of The Happy Homemaker and savage the second the camera stopped rolling, became a full cast regular. And Betty White walked away with 2 consecutive Emmy Awards for a character that was only ever written to appear once. She was only supposed to show up one time. 2 Emmys later, nobody remembers it that way. Number 5. Joe Polniaczek, The Facts of Life, 1979 to 1988. Season 1 of The Facts of Life was a mess, and there is no softer way to put it. With 7 girls at Eastland School, no clear lead character, and ratings low enough that NBC was seriously discussing whether to cancel the show after a single season. For Season 2, producers cut the cast down and brought in someone new, a streetwise girl from the Bronx named Joe Polniaczek, played by Nancy McKeon, who had been discovered after crying on command in a Hallmark greeting card commercial. What Joe brought was friction, specifically with prep school princess Blair Warner, and that gave the show the dynamic it had been missing for an entire season. 2 girls from opposite ends of the economic ladder, stuck at the same boarding school, constantly at each other's throats. It was simple, but it finally gave the writers a spine to build episodes around. The Facts of Life went on to run for 8 more years, becoming one of NBC's signature sitcoms of the 1980s, and eventually spinning off 2 television movies of its own. This is the rare case on this list where Save the Show is not an exaggeration or a bit of hype for the countdown. NBC was genuinely ready to walk away before she showed up, and the retooled cast is the entire reason there was a Season 3 to talk about. Number 4. Woody Boyd, Cheers, 1982 to 1993. For 3 seasons, Ernie Coach Pantuso was the lovably dim bartender at Cheers, the guy Sam Malone leaned on for advice he usually ignored. Nicholas Colasanto, the actor who played Coach, died of a heart attack in February of 1985 during production of Season 3. Rather than write his death into the story the way some shows have handled a real-life loss, Cheers simply quietly wrote Coach out, and the cast had to figure out what came next while still airing new episodes. Producers cast a then-unknown actor named Woody Harrelson for Season 4, and during his audition, when he learned about Colasanto's death, he reportedly teared up on the spot, which is the moment producers realized they were not just watching a comedy read anymore. 5 Emmy nominations and 1 win in 1989 later, Woody Boyd had become one of the most beloved characters in sitcom history. The show lost a beloved actor in the middle of production, in real life, and somehow turned that loss into something the whole cast could stand on for the rest of the series. Number 3. Bobby Simone, NYPD Blue, 1993 to 2005. NYPD Blue's entire first season got built around Detective John Kelly, played by David Caruso, and his performance is a big part of why the show was a hit right out of the gate. Then Caruso demanded a massive raise and more time off to pursue film roles. Producers said no, and 4 episodes into Season 2, he was gone. A very public, very risky exit for a show that was barely a season and a half old. Jimmy Smits, fresh off an Emmy-winning run on LA Law, stepped in, starting with Episode 5 as Detective Bobby Simone, a widower who had previously worked as a driver for the police commissioner. His presence was quieter and steadier than Caruso's Kelly, and that turned out to be exactly what the show needed. His chemistry with the rest of the squad, Especially his slow-burn relationship with Detective Diane Russell, who became his wife, gave the writers years of material to work with, and it is widely credited with stabilizing a show that could have collapsed the moment its lead actor walked off. 12 seasons later, when Smits chose to leave in 1998 to pursue other roles, the writers did not simply recast the badge. Bobby Simone died of complications from a heart transplant in an episode called Hearts and Souls, one of the most devastating hours the show ever produced. The lead actor thought he was bigger than the show. The replacement proved the show was bigger than either of them. If you are new here, we do this every week, tracking down TV history and the stories behind the shows you grew up on, the near misses nobody talks about. Hit subscribe if that sounds like your thing, and let's keep going, because number 2 is one of the most brutal character exits 1970s television ever attempted. Number 2, Colonel Sherman Potter, MASH, 1972 to 1983. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake commanded the 4077 for MASH's first 3 seasons, good-natured, a little lax, easy to like, and not exactly the picture of military discipline. When McLean Stevenson decided to leave the show, producers did not just write Henry Blake out quietly. His final episode ends with news delivered by radar. Blake's plane home was shot down over the Sea of Japan, no survivors. One of the most shocking moments 1970s television ever attempted. And it left the 4077 and the audience without a commanding officer. Season 4 opened with Harry Morgan as Colonel Sherman Potter, deliberately written as the opposite of Blake in almost every way. Regular Army, a career man close to retirement, someone who ran a tight camp without losing his warmth. Blake had been a reluctant draftee just trying to survive his tour, while Potter had chosen this life and clearly respected the people under his command for choosing to serve it too, and that shift in authority gave the writers room to let the show get more serious in later seasons without losing the humor entirely. Potter anchored the show for the next 8 seasons, all the way through to the series finale. They killed off the commanding officer in the most brutal way the show had ever attempted, and the replacement became even more beloved than the man he replaced. Number 1, Frasier Crane, Cheers, 1982 to 1993. Cheers Season 3 premiere, an episode called Rebound, Part 1, needed a psychiatrist, and that is it. That is the entire reason the character existed. Diane Chambers needed someone to hire so the show could deal with Sam Malone's drinking, and the writers needed a name to put in that role for a few weeks. Kelsey Grammer got contracted for exactly 6 episodes. 6! Not a season, not an arc. 6 episodes. And then Frasier Crane was supposed to disappear from Cheers entirely. What Grammer brought to the character was a vulnerability that reportedly surprised the show's own writers, and that is why they scrapped the 6-episode plan and made him a permanent cast member. Frasier stayed on Cheers for years, then carried into his own spinoff in 1993, one that ran for 11 more seasons and remains one of the most successful spinoffs in television history. Funny enough, this is not even the first time this exact thing happened in the Frasier universe. Viewers of our video on characters who were almost written off already know his brother, Niles Crane, almost did not make it into the spinoff either, added late in development and nearly cut before a single frame was shot. Frasier almost did not survive 6 episodes of somebody else's show, and decades later, his own brother almost did not survive the writer's room on his show. Some characters just do not stay planned. A 6-episode plot device turned into a character who outlasted the show that created him, twice. Conclusion: 10 characters, 10 shows that had no intention of building around any of them. Notice what these stories actually have in common. It is never the pitch, and it is almost never the plan. A producer notices something in an audition. An audience will not let a one-off character disappear. A network with no options left takes a chance on somebody nobody wrote into the outline, and over again, across 5 decades of American television, the character everybody eventually loved was the one nobody was counting on in the first place. That says something about how television actually gets made. Less blueprint, more improvisation, less master plan, more producers scrambling to fix a hole in the schedule and accidentally creating something that outlasts everything around it. Picture how differently a handful of these shows would be remembered if the emergency fix had not worked. Three's Company without Ralph Furley, NYPD Blue without Bobby Simone stepping in after 4 episodes, Cheers without Frasier Crane, and without the Woody Boyd, we got out of one of the worst weeks in that show's real production history. Every one of these was a problem first, and a beloved character only in hindsight. If you think we missed one, drop it in the comments, since we know there are more of these out there. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is a good time. We do this every week, and the next one is going to be good.